بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين وصلى الله وسلم وبارك على نبينا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين رب اشرح لي صدري ويسر لي أمري واحلل عقدة من لساني يفقه قولي اللهم علمنا ما ينفعنا وانفعنا بما علمتنا وزدنا علما. Inshallah, we'll get right into the questions and answers for today. The first question is asking that there are certain organizations that say that they are zakat eligible based on ayah number 60 of Surah At-Tawbah, where Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, إنما الصدقات للفقراء والمساكين والعاملين عليها والمؤلفة قلوبهم وفي الرقاب والغارمين وفي سبيل الله وابن السبيل. And one of the categories that is mentioned here is العاملين عليها, that the officials who are appointed to collect zakat. So some of these organizations say that they are collectors of zakat. Some of these charity organizations, they say that they are collectors of zakat, and that means they are one of these 8 groups that are mentioned in this verse. So they are allowed to take administrative costs from the zakat. So are they eligible for this or not? Are they included in this category of al-amilin alayha, those who are appointed to collect the zakat? Are the officials in these charity relief organizations considered al-amilin alayha? Are they considered those who are appointed to take over zakat, and hence are they allowed to take zakat or take a portion of zakat for themselves? Alright, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He mentions 8 specific categories in this verse. 8 specific categories for people who are allowed to take zakat. And one of these categories is al-amilin alayha. Al-amilin alayha means the people who are appointed by an Islamic government to go and collect zakat. Like during the time of the Prophet ﷺ and the Khulafa ur-Rashidun, there were certain government employees that their responsibility was to go to the people and collect the zakat. So they were doing work for the state, for the Muslim state, and they were going and collecting zakat, so they were eligible to have a portion of that zakat for themselves as well. They are included in the people who are allowed to have a portion of the zakat. These are al-amilin alayha, people who are appointed by an Islamic government to officially go and collect zakat. It does not apply to private organizations or charity, non-profit organizations that collect zakat from the people. It does not apply to the employees of these organizations. This verse, it is applying to state-appointed officials of a Muslim government whose job is to go and collect zakat. So that's not the same thing as a charity organization that has employees and they solicit zakat from the public, right? It doesn't mean that the workers of these organizations are allowed to take any of that zakat for any of their own purposes or even administrative purposes of the organization. Giving sadaqah for this purpose, general sadaqah, to cover the expenses of the organization, to cover the bills of the organization, to cover the salaries of the employees of the organization. Using general sadaqah for this is okay. But as for zakat, it cannot be used for that type of a purpose, right? Because the categories of zakat are very specific, and the category of al-amilina alayha, those who are appointed to collect the zakat, it does not apply to employees of these types of organizations. This category is referring to state-appointed officials from a Muslim state who their job is to go and collect zakat from the people. So it's not the same thing. So some of these organizations, they take a certain percentage for their administrative costs, 10%, 12%, 20%, sometimes even more than that, and they try to justify taking this from zakat. And this is something that is not allowed. If they're taking these administrative expenses, reasonable administrative expenses from sadaqah, from sadaqah money that people have given, then that's okay. But as for zakat, no. Zakat has to be 100% distributed to only these 8 categories of people that are mentioned in this verse. And the administrative costs of the organization and the salaries for the employees of the organization and expenses for their travel and whatever else they're doing, this cannot be taken out from the zakat funding. Rather, the zakat has to go only to the people who are mentioned in the verse. إنما الصدقات للفقراء والمساكين والعاملين عليها والمؤلفة قلوبهم وفي الرقاب والغارمين وفي سبيل الله وابن السبيل. These are 8 categories that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has mentioned, and zakat is not allowed to go to anyone but these 8 categories of people. So who are these 8 categories? إنما الصدقات للفقراء. Al-fuqara is the plural of faqir. So a faqir is someone who is very poor. And the second category is al-masakin. Al-masakin, they're also poor, but they're at a level that's a little bit higher than faqir. Faqir is very extremely poor. And miskin, maybe he has some income, maybe he has some money, but it's not enough to take care of his needs or the needs of himself and his household. So he's allowed to take zakat as well. So it's for faqir, it's for miskin. وَالْعَامِلِينَ عَلَيْهَا, and that's what we just went over in detail. الْعَامِلِينَ عَلَيْهَا, this applies to officials who are appointed by a Muslim government to go and collect zakat from the people. Not employees of private charity organizations that solicit zakat from the public. It's not the same thing. Al-amilin alayha, in a Muslim country, if there are officials who are appointed to go and collect zakat, they are eligible to receive zakat as well. وَالْمُؤَلَّفَةِ قُلُوبُهُمْ. Al-mu'allafati qulubuhum, this is a category of people who are new to Islam, and maybe their hearts need softening in order for them to become stronger in their faith, right? So if you give them from the zakat money, inshallah, that will strengthen their iman. So that's a category of people who it is also allowed to give zakat to. وَفِي الرِّقَابِ, captive. If anyone is a captive and you give zakat to that person, then this is permissible as well. وَالْغَارِمِينَ, people who are in debt. It is allowed to give zakat to people who are in debt. وَفِي سَبِيلِ اللَّهِ, those people who are fighting in the way of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. وَابْنِ السَّبِيلِ, and وَابْنِ السَّبِيلِ is a person who is not in his homeland. Maybe he has traveled somewhere and he has lost access to his money. Maybe he's traveling somewhere and he had a certain amount of money with him, but now he lost his money. Maybe it got stolen, maybe he lost it, right? And now he has no way to get back home, right? Because he lost access to his money. So maybe even though this person may be rich, maybe he has a lot of money saved at home, right? But currently in his current situation, away from home, and he has no access to his money, right? So he's stranded and he's stuck. This person is also allowed to take zakat money. So these are the 8 categories of people who are allowed to take zakat, and no one else is allowed to take zakat. As for other needs, regular sadaqah can be given for these things. And this also includes administrative costs of organizations. Regular sadaqah can be given for these type of things. Funding the infrastructure and the bills and the upkeep and the maintenance of Islamic schools, for example, or hospitals or masajid. Regular sadaqah can be given for these type of things. But as for zakat, it has to be strictly given only to these 8 categories of people that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has mentioned in this verse. Next questioner is asking, there are many hospitals that are providing cancer and other treatments, including chemotherapy, free of cost to poor and needy people. These hospitals are running solely on zakat and donations. The hospitals have a system to donate zakat, and currently people who donate zakat have no control over how the hospital spends their money. These hospitals solely depend on zakat or donations. However, there are chances they may spend this money on infrastructure, equipment, medicines based on their needs. General people do not have any control over how the money is spent. If we do not give zakat to such hospitals, they may end up shutting down. Let's say the hospital uses a portion of our zakat money for administrative expenses. In this situation, what should we do? Some people have tried to talk to these hospitals, but their response is that the money is spent according to their needs and they cannot separate. What should we do? All right, like we mentioned in the answer to the last question, zakat is very specific only to certain categories of people, and it does not include administrative costs of hospitals or schools or any of these types of organizations, right? So if you are giving zakat money to such an organization or such a hospital, it has to be specified that this money, it should be only spent on the poor people who are in the hospital who are deserving of zakat. If they're making sure that the money is spent on the poor people who are in the hospital, then this is okay. But if it's being spent for other purposes, administrative purposes, then zakat should not be used for this, but general donations can be used for this. So these organizations must be informed regarding the rules of zakat, and they have to understand that zakat is only for specific purposes. And as for regular donations, regular sadaqah, this is very wide in scope. Regular sadaqah can be used for any of these purposes. It can be used for paying the bills. It can be used for paying the salaries of those who work in the hospital. It can be used for the administrative expenses. That's fine. Regular sadaqah, regular donations can be used for these type of things. But zakat, it has to be kept specifically for the categories of people that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has mentioned in this verse in the Quran. So, this has to be clarified to them. And if you fear that your zakat is not being used in the right way, then instead of giving zakat, you can give a general sadaqah donation. You can give general sadaqah, and they can use that for anything they want. And as for your zakat, try to make sure that it reaches, the people who are included in the 8 categories that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has mentioned. Make sure that your zakat reaches those people, and that will be safer for you, inshallah. If a hospital treats Muslim and non-Muslim patients and accepts zakat, can we donate to such hospitals? Again, zakat only goes to these 8 categories of people that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala mentioned. And zakat, as a general rule, it's only for Muslims. Zakat only goes to Muslims as a general rule. And there are very, very few exceptions to that. But, for the most part, the general rule is that zakat only goes to Muslims. As for regular sadaqah, once again, as for regular sadaqah, it can be given to Muslims and it can be given to non-Muslims. This is much wider in scope. So for these type of hospitals, if you can make sure that your zakat is going to a Muslim who is deserving of zakat, then you have to do that. But if you cannot be sure about this, then it's safer to give them general sadaqah and general donation, and then they can spend that however they see fit. But as for your zakat, you have to take responsibility and make sure that it reaches only the people that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has mentioned in the verse, only from one of those 8 categories, one or more of those 8 categories of people. The next questioner is asking, there is a child back home and he needs cardiac surgery. There's a child back home and she needs cardiac surgery. Her parents are middle class and need money for the surgery. Can I give my zakat money to this family? Oh, all right. If they're Muslims and they are in need, then absolutely, yes, you can give your zakat to them. If they're Muslim and they are in need, even if they're middle class. It doesn't matter if they're middle class. Sometimes a person may be middle class, but still they have some expenses that are beyond their means. So these people, they can receive zakat. So even if this family is middle class, as long as they're Muslims and they need the money, and usually, cardiac surgery is probably very expensive, right? If they need the money, then you can give them from your zakat, and this is fine, inshallah. Next question is asking, if I invest money in an IRA or stocks, do I pay zakat on the amount I'm putting in or the actual value of the account to date? All right, regarding putting money into an IRA, there are a number of different opinions that the scholars held regarding this. Some of the scholars say that, you pay zakat on everything that is in the account every year. And then some of the scholars have said because there's a penalty in withdrawing, you don't have full access to that money, so you don't have to pay any zakat on it until the time comes that you can withdraw it without penalty. Then you have to start paying zakat on it every year. That's another opinion. Then there's another opinion is that you pay zakat on whatever you put into it voluntarily. Whatever you're putting into the account voluntarily, you should pay zakat on that. Right? And sometimes, for example, there may be companies that have a let's say like a 401k plan, for example, where the company puts in a certain amount, right? And you don't have access to that. And you also can voluntarily put in some amount. So you put in some amount and the company matches it, for example, right? So the amount that the company is putting in, you have no access to that. But the amount that you're voluntarily putting in, you're putting that in with your own free will. You're parting with that money on your own. So there are some scholars who have said that you have to pay on the whole amount, even the company's portion and your portion, because that's technically all your money. But then there are some scholars who have said, no, the amount that the company is putting in, you have no access to that, at least for now, until you reach the age where you're able to withdraw it. So for now, you have no access to that. But as for the amount that you're voluntarily putting in, they're not taking it out from your paycheck automatically, but you're voluntarily putting in. If they're taking it out from your paycheck automatically, then, you have no access to that either. But if you're voluntarily putting it in, then you should pay zakat on the amount that you are parting with voluntarily, because you actually do have control over that money. So this probably is the most balanced approach. Like I said, there are different opinions on it. Some say that you don't have to pay zakat on it at all until you're able to withdraw it without penalty. Some say you should pay zakat on it completely, even the company's portion. And then, some have this middle view approach where they say that, part of that money, you have no access to it, but the other part, you put it in voluntarily, so you had access to that money. So they say, as for the part that the company has put in and you have no access to that, you do not have to pay zakat on that for now. But as for the part that you're voluntarily putting in, you should pay zakat every year on that, right? So many different opinions, and scholars, they have their reasoning for each one of these opinions, and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala knows best. But I feel that the most balanced approach is that for the money that you do not have any access to and you have no control over, you do not have to pay zakat on it until you have access to that money and have control over it. But as for the amount that you are voluntarily putting in, then you should pay zakat on that, and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala knows best. As for stocks, people who invest in stocks, it depends, the zakat on stocks, it depends on the intention of the person, why he has bought these stocks. If he's doing trade in the stocks in and of themselves, buying stocks and then selling them. So he's basically using the stocks as like a commodity in order to buy and sell and make profit. So this person, he should pay zakat on the value of the stocks when zakat becomes obligatory. So every year, he should see what the value of those stocks are and pay the 2.5% on whatever the value of the stocks are. That's if his intention in buying these stocks was to deal in the stocks in and of themselves, buy stocks and sell stocks. But if the person's intention in buying the stocks was not to buy and sell the stocks, not to sell the stocks in and of themselves, but just to use that as an investment and to make profit off the dividends of the stocks, then in this case, the person, he would not have to pay the zakat on the value of the stocks. Rather, every year he would have to pay zakat on the profit that he made from the stock. So it depends on your intention, on why you bought the stocks, what you're doing with these stocks. And this is between yourself and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. You know the intention of why you bought these stocks. So what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala knows why you bought these stocks, of course. So you have to do it according to what your intention was. If your intention was to do business with the stocks in and of themselves, then you pay the zakat on the value of the stocks. If your intention was not to actually sell the stocks, but to just make profit from the dividends that come from those stocks, then you pay the zakat not on the value of the stocks in and of themselves, but on the amount of on the amount that you're making from the dividends of the stocks, if it reaches the nisab. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala knows best. Second part of this question he's asking is, my company is giving me a certain amount of money as a bonus, $5,000 for example. I have a choice to take it but then the government will tax me on it, or I can put the money into a retirement account and I won't get taxed on it. If I put that amount into the retirement account and don't have access to it until I retire, do I have to pay zakat on that amount at this time? All right, so if you voluntarily put that $5,000 in the retirement account, you voluntarily put it in the account, then the safer thing to do would be, once 1 year passes, upon you having possession of that money, you should pay zakat on it because you put it into the account voluntarily. If you decided not to put it into the account and you just took it and they taxed it, then you would have to pay the zakat. If you have it for 1 year, you would have to pay zakat on the value that was given to you. So for example, if the bonus was $5,000, but you never collected the full $5,000, you took it and they taxed it before giving it to you. So let's say you only got $4,000, for example. You never got the full $5,000. You only got $4,000, and then 1 year has passed on that. Then you pay zakat on the $4,000. You don't have to pay zakat on the extra $1,000 that was taken away as taxes because you never got that money. You never actually had access to that money. Next questioner is asking, my question is, I maintain 2 bank accounts, checking and savings. The checking account gets the salary credited into it and is used for all expenses, so the amount is always fluctuating. I transfer a small amount into the savings account from time to time, but not regularly. And if times are bad, I take some money out of the savings as well, but not too often. So when I calculate total zakat, will it be on the amount only in the savings account, or should I include the amount in the checking account as well? I usually do zakat calculation during the last 10 days of Ramadan. All right, so it doesn't matter where your money is being held, as long as you have full access to this money. And the money that you have in your checking account, you have full access to it. And the money that you have in your savings account, you also have full access to that. So as long as it is money that you have full access to, it doesn't matter where it is being kept, whether it's a checking account or a savings account, or whether you keep it under your bed or whatever. As long as you have money that you have access to, and you've had that money for 1 year, zakat becomes obligatory upon it. So you add all of the places where you have wealth, whether it's a checking account or whether it's a savings account, or any other wealth that you may have stored at home or whatever it is, whatever you have, and 1 year has passed on it. If 1 year has passed on you having at least the minimum amount of wealth that is required for you to pay zakat, then you pay zakat on it. So you'll add what you have in your checking account, what you have in your savings account, whatever cash you have on hand, you add all of that. As long as you have had that amount for 1 Hijri year, then zakat becomes obligatory upon it, and you would pay the zakat on that. And one question that may come up, especially with people who have regular jobs where they're getting money, for example, they're getting their salary monthly. So when you pay your zakat, like for example, you're saying you pay your zakat and you calculate it during the last 10 days of every Ramadan. So when your zakat becomes due, there will be some amount that zakat is due on, because you've had it for 1 year, and there will be some amount of that zakat that maybe zakat is not due on it yet. For example, the salary that you got last month, right? 1 year has not passed on that amount yet, right? But you're making your whole calculation, in this example, you're making your whole calculation on one of the nights during the last 10 nights of Ramadan. So in this case, just gather whatever money you have, whatever money that you have access to, calculate it all together and pay zakat on it one time, 2.5%. So some of that zakat will have been due because you've had it since the last time you paid zakat to now, and some of the zakat on that may even not be due yet. Maybe it's some new wealth that you received within the last year, but you're still paying zakat on it now. That's okay, because you can pay zakat in advance. You can pay zakat in advance. So if you're paying zakat on a set day every year, and you are receiving money on a regular basis, like you're receiving a salary monthly, then what will happen is that when you pay your zakat, there will be some portion of your wealth where the zakat is actually due today, and there will be some portion of your wealth where the zakat may not be due yet, because you acquired it within the last year. So the zakat may not be due upon it yet, but you're still paying zakat on it anyways, and that's okay, because paying zakat in advance is allowed. So for some of that portion, you will be paying your zakat on time, and for some of it, you will be paying it in advance, right? That's easier than, calculating 1 year every time you get new wealth. That will be very confusing. Like you're getting some wealth this month, then you're getting some wealth next month. So you're calculating the zakat for this one, 1 year from today. Then the wealth that you get next month, you're calculating the zakat from that day to the next year. So you'll be constantly paying zakat. It'll become very confusing. So the easiest way to do it for people who are constantly getting income is, select one time of the year, like you do it in one of the nights of the last 10 nights of Ramadan, for example. Pay your zakat on what is due, and even if there is some wealth where the zakat is not due yet because you acquired it recently, you still pay zakat on it, and it will count as if you have paid it in advance. And it is allowed to pay zakat in advance, 1 to 2 years in advance, right? But not more than 2 years. So it is permissible to do this, and this makes it easy for you. Just select a day, and every year pay your zakat, 2.5% of the wealth that you have control over. Pay your zakat on that day. Do it every year. For some portion, it will be considered zakat that is due, and for some portion, it will be considered zakat that has been paid in advance. And that makes life easy for you, inshallah. All right, the next questioner is asking, I saved money in a bank account. It gave interest. I know interest is haram. So my question is, what can I do with this money? All right, so first of all, you should not save your money in an interest-generating account. If you need to keep your money in a bank, keep it in a non-interest-bearing account. Do not keep it in an interest-bearing account. But if someone has done this in the past and they have put their money in an account and it has generated interest, then the first thing you need to do is repent to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, ask Him for His forgiveness. And secondly, you need to get rid of this money. You need to get rid of it. You cannot keep it for yourself. You need to get rid of it. And the way to get rid of it is to give it in any charitable cause. Give it away in charity without expecting reward from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Without expecting that this is sadaqah or this is something that, don't expect that, because it's not actually sadaqah. It's you getting rid of money that you should not have had in the first place, right? So get rid of it as soon as possible. Give it away in charity. Next questioner is asking, I have always learned that making dua for non-Muslims is not permissible except that you ask Allah to guide them. But then I came across a hadith in the Musannaf of Ibn Abi Shayba where the Prophet ﷺ made dua for a Jewish man for him to look young and all of the man's hair went from gray to black. Does this mean that we are allowed to make dua for non-Muslims? You are allowed to make dua for non-Muslims while they are alive for worldly things. Like for example, if a non-Muslim is sick, you can make dua that may Allah restore your health. That's fine. There's no problem in doing that. If a non-Muslim started a business, a halal business, you can say, may Allah make your business successful, right? If a non-Muslim, for example, lost a child and they're very sad, you can go and give that person condolences and say, may Allah give you patience. These things are okay. You can make dua for a non-Muslim while they're alive for these type of things. But the prohibition comes in when a non-Muslim dies. When a non-Muslim dies, you're not allowed to make any dua for that person anymore. Because Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, مَا كَانَ لِلنَّبِيِّ وَالَّذِينَ آمَنُوا أَن يَسْتَغْفِرُوا لِلْمُشْرِكِينَ وَلَوْ كَانُوا أُولِي قُرْبَى مِن بَعْدِ مَا تَبَيَّنَ لَهُمْ أَنَّهُمْ أَصْحَابُ الْجَحِيمِ. That it is not allowed for the Prophet nor the believers to ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala for forgiveness for the mushrikeen after they die, even if they're your close relatives, when it has become apparent that they are from the companions of the fire. So after a non-Muslim dies, then the door to dua is cut off for that person. But while the person is alive, a non-Muslim is alive, of course you can make dua for that person's guidance. That's the best dua you can make for that person. You can make dua for their guidance, but you can also make dua for other general worldly things too. Like, may Allah give you good health, may Allah make your business successful, may Allah give you patience. These type of things, it is fine, no problem, inshallah. Next questioner is asking, is it permissible to open a baby registry and receive gifts from those stores who offer baby registry gifts? There is nothing that is prohibited in doing this, inshallah. Having a baby shower where the friends of an expectant new mother arrange a party for her before the baby is born, and the people come in, and maybe they have a meal, maybe lunch or dinner, or just a small party, and they bring gifts. There is no problem in doing that. And if they want to set up a baby registry so that the gifts they get are usable, because sometimes if many people come and they give gifts, many times they might give, like, everyone gives the same type of gift, and then you can't use it and you don't know what to do with it, right? So if someone wants to just set up a baby registry where they mention the items that they need, and people can buy those items if they wish. They're not being forced to buy it, but if they wish, they can buy something off that registry to make it easier for the new mother. Then inshallah there is no harm in doing this, as long as no one is forced to do this. As long as no one is forced to buy something from the baby registry, and as long as you're not making it a condition that for you to come to the party you have to get something for me from the baby registry, or you have to bring a gift. As long as these are not made as conditions, and people are just doing it out of their own kindness and their own free will, then inshallah there is no harm in doing that. And to receive gifts from these stores who offer baby registry gifts, inshallah there's no problem in doing that as well. Next questioner is asking, is this hadith authentic where one who eats garlic or onion should not come to the masjid? This hadith is authentic. There's a hadith where the Prophet ﷺ said, "Man akala thuman aw basalan falyatazilna," aw qal falyatazil masjidana walyaq'ud fi baytihi. The Prophet ﷺ said that whoever has eaten garlic or onion, then let him stay away from us. Or he said, let him stay away from our masjid and let him sit in his house. Right? So if someone has a bad smell emanating from them, usually because if you eat raw garlic or raw onion, that smell lingers in a person's mouth. And when that person comes to the masjid, there are other people in the masjid, there are also angels in the masjid, and they are bothered by this smell. So until that smell is gone, they should not come to the masjid. In another narration, the Prophet ﷺ said, فَإِنَّ الْمَلَائِكَةَ تَتَأَذَّى مِمَّا يَتَأَذَّى مِنْهُ النَّاسِ. Because surely the angels, they are offended, or they are bothered by the same things that bother human beings. So just like, if you smell garlic or onion on someone's breath, that bothers you, it also bothers the angels. So when you come to the masjid, the angels are present, inshallah, so that bothers them as well. So you have to make sure that, don't eat garlic or onion before coming to the masjid. And if you want to eat it, make sure that it's cooked, because if you cook it, then it loses that smell, it loses that effect. Right? That's what Umar ibn Khattab radiallahu anhu, he used to advise people, that if you have to eat it, then kill it. What he meant by kill it is like cook it, so that it will lose that effect of having that smell emanate from the person who has eaten it. Right? So basically what we learn from this hadith is that anyone who's in a situation where he can cause a bother or an annoyance to the people in the masjid, then he should stay away from the masjid until that situation is gone. So if some bad smell is coming from him, he needs to take care of that first before he comes to the masjid. All right, and the last question that we have for today, it's asking about du'as that we can use for forgiveness during Ramadan. I know that there are du'as for forgiveness, but specifically wanted to know which ones to use for forgiveness during the month of Ramadan. All right, so the du'as where you ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala for forgiveness, they are general du'as. There's not necessarily something that is specific for asking Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala for forgiveness in Ramadan. Rather, you can use these du'as for forgiveness in Ramadan and outside of Ramadan. And the most famous one, specifically for Ramadan, which you can of course use outside of Ramadan as well, but we usually hear about it in Ramadan because our mother Aisha radiallahu anha, she asked the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, Ya Rasulullah, if I happen to catch Laylatul Qadr, what dua should I make on Laylatul Qadr? And the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam advised her with the dua, Allahumma innaka afuun tuhibbul afwa fa'fu anni. Oh Allah, you are the pardoner, you love to pardon, so pardon me. So this is a dua that you can say in Ramadan and also outside of Ramadan. And there are so many other du'as asking Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala for forgiveness that we can use in this month and outside of this month. The leader of all du'as for istighfar, there is one du'a that is known as Sayyidul Istighfar. Sayyid al-Istighfar, the leader of the du'as asking Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala for forgiveness. So this is a very beneficial du'a. You can make it in Ramadan, also make it outside of Ramadan. And inshallah, I will post it onto the King Fahd Mosque community group as the questioner is requesting. The dua is Allahumma anta rabbi la ilaha illa anta khalaqtani wa ana abduka wa ana ala ahdika wa wa'dika mastata'tu a'udhu bika min sharri ma sana'tu abu'u laka bi ni'matika alayya wa abu'u bi dhanbi faghfir li فإنه لا يغفر الذنوب إلا أنت. So this dua is known as Sayyidul Istighfar, the leader of all du'as asking Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala for His forgiveness. So very beneficial in Ramadan and outside of Ramadan. Inshallah, we'll post this dua on the group bi'idhnillah. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala accept from all of us. Ameen. Wallahu alam. Sallallahu wa sallam wa baraka ala nabiyyina Muhammad wa ala alihi wa sahbihi ajma'een.